On April 24th, 2024, Escape from Tarkov would go under maintenance for about 6 hours. Community members expected some great new changes that have been anticipated for months. Will Battlestate Games finally fix the armor issues? Maybe hitboxes will finally be fixed. Could they have addressed all the performance issues on streets and other maps? Well, once the 6-hour maintenance finished, none would be seen, as an announcement was made on their socials that would fill the community with rage and despair. Today, we talk about Tarkov's fall from grace, and to make it digestible, I'll split it into two sections, talking about how the community views Battlestate Games, and the actual health of Tarkov itself, focusing mostly on the recent events that have transpired. Before we dive into that though, let's explain a little about Tarkov to those of you who came from the callouts video and might not know what it is. And I'll keep the yap to a minimum for you lot that do know. Escape from Tarkov, the beta version at least, became available on the 28th of July 2017, with the full release date still unconfirmed. The game is a realism extraction shooter where the main objective is to survive raids while escaping with more resources or money than you came in with, or completing quests to level up your character. That's the main gist at least. Obviously there's a lot more to it, but that's the main objective, just like your main objective should be hitting that subscribe button after the video. Anyway, alongside the main purchase of the game, Tarkov offered 4 main additions: Standard, Left Behind, Prepare for Escape, and the most expensive, Edge of Darkness, at a whopping $200-ish. Obviously in AUD and not USD, and also rounded up by $8 because it sounds better, but my point stands. It was pretty expensive, but people were prepared to buy this edition due to the amount that was given to us, and the knowledge that they were supporting a game that they loved so much. I also want to bring to attention one main thing EOD players got promised with their purchase, which was that they would receive all future DLC for Tarkov. Remember that. Regardless, Tarkov has gained a pretty large following in the past years, making a name for itself as one of the most unique and intense games on the market, and I'd have to agree, my heart rate never reaches as high as it does in Tarkov in any other video game I play. This community has come to expect great things of BSG. Of course, there's issues that persist. Fix streets, please. But historically, BSG has always followed through on promises, and consistently released pretty high quality updates. That was until they posted the announcement that took the community by shock. On April 24th, Battlestate Games made a post on all their socials announcing a new edition of the game that replaced EOD, Unheard Edition. And this is where all hell broke loose. People began commenting in droves about the corporate greed that Battlestate Games was so clearly partaking in. A company once loved by many was shunned for the ridiculous $400 price tag in AUD. But above all else, at least people who bought EOD could get the new DLC for free, right? Because BSG is charging for new downloadable content. No? Oh. BSG didn't even keep their promise of free DLC, arguing that this edition wasn't DLC, despite the fact that it literally was downloadable content. I mean, it wasn't like it was cheap for EOD players to upgrade either. It was about $150, which is not a cheap price tag. Understandably, the community was pissed. People took to social media, berating BSG with their complaints, but instead of providing any sort of compromise, BSG doubled down on their original claims, and many people began to quit the game as a response. Some people may be curious as to why people were so angry, so let me outline it for you. Firstly, there was a betrayal of trust. Plain and simple. BSG promised something to the very people that let the game continue to grow, and that was ripped away. And secondly, people who bought Unheard Edition got some pretty game-breaking things. For example, an increase in starting skills to all those with the edition, expanded PMC pockets allowing people to hold various 2-slot magazines and items without the need for a rig or backpack, an increased fence rep, and more flea market slots. These bonuses are insane, and why heaps of people were calling it pay to win. Now, somewhat contradictory, the third reason is that many people were complaining that for $400, they should be getting more than what they already had. Which admittedly hurt my brain for a little bit because both of these arguments come from the same sort of people, but I think I understand. People are simultaneously angry that A, the price tag is absurd even for all the bonuses and advantages you receive, and B, that the people who do actually buy it are receiving a competitive advantage that is just plain unfair. Good job, BSG. You somehow managed to gain criticism from both parties here. There's no one's defending you. I don't understand. Hi, this is like future me. I can kind of see why BSG would have done this, like if they really needed money for servers and developing the game or whatever. But like regardless, this is like really shitty. $400 is kind of absurd. Like that's an unreal price tag. There's just no two ways about it. Now, a lot of you will notice I've left out one major thing that you got from Unheard Edition at the very start. And that's because this is the thing that caused the most backlash. People who purchased the Unheard Edition would get access to an all-new PvE game mode. The exact same as PvP, but with AI replacing PMCs and no wipes. This was insane for BSG to add. A greedy ploy to scrape as much money out of people as possible. Again, BSG promised all EOD players every new DLC, and if the edition didn't count, the PvE game mode sure did. Luckily, after a heap of backlash, BSG began rolling out PvE to all EOD players, seemingly rectifying this small issue in their massive backlog. At this point, many in the community were starting to realize that BSG was about as useful as a solar-powered torch. And now, well, the main view of BSG is still negative. Many still haven't returned to the game and may never go back, purely due to these greedy actions from a company that they once loved. However, disregarding how the community sees BSG, there might be a more prominent reason people aren't returning to Tarkov, and that might be the actual health of the game. Woo! Yeah, that was a W transition. That was good. Anyhow, disregarding a lot of the main issues, like performance and weird hitboxes, I want to focus on this recent update, because that's what the video is about, obviously. Mostly about PvE. Now, I can't explain just how horrid some of the repercussions might be if BSG doesn't fix some things. PvE, fundamentally, is a much calmer experience than main Tarkov, which is a good thing in hindsight. And I want to preface this section by saying that I enjoy Tarkov PvE. But in saying that, there are some issues, mostly pertaining to the longevity of the game, that I want to highlight. But before getting into that, let's play a game. Every time I say PvP or PvE, you have to take a shot. Actually, looking at my script, you probably shouldn't do that. That's probably not going to be very healthy for you. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. Now that I've avoided a potential legal case, let's move on. The first point about PvE is that I can see it becoming more popular than PvP. And I know that might be a controversial opinion, but bear with me. Here's how I see it. PvE is much easier than PvP, right? Yeah, obviously. And you know, one main criticism of Tarkov, whether you agree with it or not, is the massive skill curve that it requires, making it difficult for new players to access. You know what doesn't have this skill curve? PvE. It lets new players skip almost all of the main difficulties with the game, not needing to learn a large portion of it being the combat. This, to me at least, makes it seem like new players might opt to choose PvE over PvP, ultimately dwindling the player count for Tarkov's main game mode, especially now that PvE is purchasable separately to Unheard Edition. Now, of course, people might still prefer PvP due to the increased stakes and difficulty, but as people who prefer PvP get more chatted out, PvP becomes less and less accessible for the new players, who will continue to opt for PvE in droves. Now, of course, all that is theoretical, but I felt like I needed to share my concern, because in time, PvP may even be played less than PvE despite the added price. I can see BSG taking precautions though, if not now, then in the near future. Maybe more of a reason to play PvP outside of purely the increased stakes. And Ref, the new trader, is a decent implementation of this, but of course you still have to play Arena, and I'd rather not have to play that. The second option is that PvE falls out of favor with most people, being the inverse of the first. Given that PvE has no wipes, there's the potential that people just grow bored and then return to PvP. This is probably the better outcome in terms of the game's health, but it seems like BSG really wants these game modes to coexist, which is pretty hard to balance, because they're the same game mode effectively. There's no reason to play both at the same time if you can just choose one that fits your playstyle better. Other games like Call of Duty have major distinctions between their PvE and PvP game modes, serving completely different purposes, like multiplayer and zombies, which is much easier to moderate than Tarkov. Given that PvP and PvE are the exact same game mode with players and without, it is much harder to separate them enough so that they can both coexist. Reiterating what I said before, there's the chance that if BSG does nothing, one of the two will kick the bucket eventually, and the other one will continue to live on. Anyway, this just could be me catastrophizing, and being a little paranoid. To be fair, I came up with the concept of PvE taking over while I was in bed about to go to sleep, but Einstein did that shit with all of his, thoughts, so I think it's not too far-fetched. Anyway, I don't think anything said today was too far-fetched to become reality. Tell me what you guys reckon in the comments, and make sure you like and subscribe, and go watch the Elden Ring video because it didn't get pushed. It's got 200 views and 800 impressions. A 25% click-through rate is fucking insane if it's not gonna get pushed. I don't get it. Go watch it.